Welcome back, listener. How are you doing? I'm glad you had a good week, and welcome back to Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. My name is Aaron Richmond. By the way, today's episode of Aaron's Opinion is copywritten by Aaron Richmond and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you. You can follow Aaron's Opinion on Facebook, Twitter, right here on YouTube, or a lot of places you get a podcast. And along with doing that, you are welcome to follow us on Patreon. I would appreciate the support. Speaking of these types of things, we talk to interesting blind people from all over the world who do really important work to support other blind people and help other blind people. And today is no different. We would like to give a very warm welcome to Krystle Allen, the president and co-founder of Eyes Like Mine Incorporated. Hey, how are you? Welcome to Aaron's Opinion.
Hello. Thank you, Aaron, for inviting me on your wonderful podcast experience.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining me at such short notice. I do appreciate it a lot. Yes. So, one of the first questions that I usually like to ask is, Krystle, can you talk to us about your your journey, your blindness journey, and what I mean is, how you became blind, all of that, if you want. I listened to your episode that you recorded with someone else. It was the way that you became blind is quite interesting. If you want to share the story, go right ahead.
Sure, no problem. Well, I am legally blind, and it's 20 years this year in 2020. And I started losing my vision at the age of 16 due to a malpractice from a dermatologist who was treating me for a skin condition that I have called eczema. And I've had eczema since I was about 5 years old. However, I wasn't seeing much success in a lot of the treatment up until I began getting some treatment from this particular dermatologist. And by the way, his name was Michael Jackson. But not, the well-known Michael Jackson that we all loved and appreciated. So, out of many visits I've had to previous dermatologists, this seemed to be the one because the treatment he gave me helped my skin tremendously. However, within a year of treatment, toward the end of the year, I started having really different experiences with headaches all day, every day, being fatigued, vomiting clear fluid, feeling unbalanced when walking as if I was going to just fall and collapse. And I wasn't really certain of what was going on with me. I would just take Tylenol from time to time, thinking that was going to help. And I was working in a gift shop in a hospital called Columbus Hospital in New Jersey. And there used to be one of the workers who would always come in and speak to me. And I would be like, oh, my head is hurting me. My head is hurting me. And he would go and get me Tylenol. And then the school year was approaching. I was going to be a junior in high school. And I just knew that I was going to be able to still go to the school that I loved. And hospital that was open at the time, she just said, maybe we should go and see about the eye doctor here. And when I got there, that doctor, he examined me, but he wasn't really thorough. He just told me that I needed to come back in 2 weeks for some prescription eyewear because my eyes were inflamed, meaning swollen. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought that, by his direction, I would feel a little relief within 2 weeks. And I was looking forward to getting my eyeglasses. And before the 2 weeks was released, I went back to the same place. However, there was a different eye doctor, and he was more thorough in his examination of me, where ultimately he determined that I acquired a condition called pseudotumor cerebri. And what pseudotumor cerebri is pretty much a false brain tumor. So you have all of the symptoms of a brain tumor, but you don't grow the actual tumor on your brain. And everyone has cerebral spinal fluid to help the healthy functioning of the brain and to keep yourselves balanced. So, in many cases, cerebral spinal fluid should be between 12 and 16. That is considered a normal level. But in my case, and maybe others, uh, my cerebral spinal fluid levels would rise to 38. And that number is an extreme level because it could it could have transformed me into experiencing seizures and even uh, other fatalities. But fortunately enough, I was being treated and I did not have any aneurysms or anything like that. And what happens with pseudotumor is when you have excessive cerebral spinal fluid, it becomes a head pressure. And any pain that you've ever had in your face or your head is considered a pressure, and even on your body. Um, so in my case, when I would have my headaches, the fluid would push my brain forward onto my skull and my optic nerves. And because the skull is considered like a barrier, it wouldn't have much else, where to go. So what it would do was it would shift backward onto, my sternum and the beginning of my spine. And that would affect my equilibrium, which would make me off balance. And that's why I would experience feeling like I was going to collapse in many cases. So I had to immediately be rushed to the emergency room to begin the treatment that was pretty much going to be my entire life changed. I was kind of baffling to some of my specialists was why I acquired pseudotumor cerebri, because at my age at that time, being 16, it was very rare. So most people who would get pseudotumor cerebri would be between their late 30s and early 40s. They would be extremely overweight and they would have a high salt intake in their diet. And at that time, I was just 143 pounds. I was a teenager and I didn't have a high salt intake. So it was really no understanding as to why I acquired this up until my neuro ophthalmologist, did a further investigation of my prescription history. And he learned that the medication I was being treated for by the dermatologist had seven different ones containing an ingredient called tetracycline. And tetracycline is what initiated the pseudotumor because it was in seven different ones over time. My body reacted to it as if it was an overdose. And as a result of that, I had 22 spinal taps over a period of time, two eye surgeries to sustain my remaining vision, and one temporary shunt to measure how much fluid I built around my brain, optic nerves, and spine, laying in different positions. So currently, I see hand motion and light out of my left eye, and out of my right eye, I see out of my right peripheral. Um, So yeah, that's kind of pretty much it in terms of my vision loss. And I've never met anyone who was blind or visually impaired before I started losing my vision. Not even my own cousin. I have a cousin who lives in South Carolina. She's totally blind. And it wasn't until after I started losing my eyesight that I began to meet others who are making ways for others who follow in the blindness community, as well as my very own cousin. She has a son, and he's actually, when he graduated high school, he graduated with his high school diploma and his college degree, his associates, and he's totally blind. So I didn't get the opportunity to meet them until after I started losing my vision. So I was so happy once I became more introduced into the blindness community that there are possibilities. There's still life after blindness, and there's so much to stay connected to in spite of this new lifestyle. I really do feel that blindness is a culture. It's a way of life. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, I greatly appreciate you sharing your story of how you became blind. It's a very interesting story, very, very unfortunate. And of course, I'm sorry that happened. But in life, there are things that are out of our control that for some reason happen, and we really have no idea why they happen. And there are a lot of mysteries in our lives like that. It's a very, very strange. I know that your story is true, and it's also a very strange way to become blind. That one's unusual. I've had other people who've been hit over the head by a brick. I've had all sorts of ways of becoming blind, but that one's quite strange, quite unusual, and quite important to remember. To learn about ingredients and side effects of certain things. But it's really interesting. So this is really not the end of Krystle's story. At some point, Krystle, you decided that since you really enjoy talking to people and helping other blind people, you thought about starting some sort of an organization. Why don't you tell us about that?
Sure. My organization is called Eyes Like Mine Incorporated,
Link in the
and
description and click the link in the description for more information. Go ahead.
yes, it is a 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit organization, and a lot of our work revolves around bringing awareness to vision loss and vision loss resources, as well as we've been moving and shaking for about 6 years strong. And we have different staple programs like Dancing with the Blind, which is our own version of Dancing with the Stars. And it concludes with a competition recital. Um, we also have our audio book club, of which we are planning for a family affair virtual event this Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. on Zoom, where we're reading R.L. Stein's Goosebumps, The Haunted Mask 2. We're going to have some trivia. We're going to have a haunted mask costume contest, as well as a family dance contest. So if the parent is visually impaired or blind, or if the child is visually impaired or blind, we are inviting all to join us on Saturday. Efforts and our advocacy, we still try to press forward so that more communities are educated about the lifestyles of people with disabilities, people with vision loss, because there's truly and definitely life after blindness. And we are not just existing. in this world. We are definitely living, and we are pioneers in the blindness community. All of us, everyone, whether it's another blindness organization or an individual who's advocating for the rights of people with vision loss, we all hold a hand in the pot where we are making a way for the next person to succeed. So, and we have a website, which is eyeslikeMine.org. We have a newsletter that we produce that goes to a little over 1,400 people. And we just share our information about what we're doing. We recently had our first ever virtual pageant for women with vision loss, which is called the Miss Blind Diva Empowerment Pageant. And we produced 2 title holders out of this year's event. This was actually our 4th pageant. So we are planning for our milestone pageant in 2021, which will be the 5th year. And since the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been hosting a series of peer support groups every Sunday from 2 until 4 p.m. More recently, we observed the 75th anniversary of National Disability Employment Awareness Month on this past Sunday, where we had a host of different speakers who were sharing their story, sharing their challenges, their success. And we also had different video presentations to educate our community about who we are and what matters to us, inclusion and people first language. So it was a great event. And we have more to come. We've been doing these support groups on Sundays through the New Jersey Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired Aspire Peer Support Network, which houses 66 peer-led support groups throughout the entire state of New Jersey. And we've had a swelling of over 50 speakers who are all blind and visually impaired to connect with our participants and our viewing audience in the Zoom platform and on our Facebook pages so that everyone can walk away with some resources and information that will hopefully enhance their lifestyles.
Really excellent and really well done. Thank you for that. You know, there are many, many, many 501(c)s and there are many nonprofits all over the country. If someone is listening to this episode of Aaron's Opinion and wondering, well, how do I know that Eyes Like Mine Incorporated is real, is true, and is truly a genuine 50C that is worth their support? What is the one thing you would tell them to prove, factually prove, that what you're doing is truly changing lives and helping people? How do we know?
Well, one way of doing that, Aaron, is well,
I'm asking because a lot of the reason I would ask this difficult question, guys, is that a lot of people um, struggle to know and understand the work that 501(c)s are actually doing, and that there are 501(c)s that that are kind of
dormant.
perhaps perhaps talking the talk. Now I know that your 501(c) walks the walk, or else you wouldn't be talking to me. But how does an outsider know, and how can an outsider trust what you're doing? What do you think? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, did you hear the question?
You were muted. I could not hear you for a good minute.
Okay. The question was, so how does an outsider know that, that your organization is truly, helping people and truly doing the right thing? How does an outsider know you are walking the walk?
Well, one, by joining some of the things that we do virtually, especially since we are on Zoom and on our social media pages weekly with our peer support group and having planned stapled events and programs throughout the year. One way is one, going to our website and support but for the support group, for volunteerism. We more recently were able to recruit um, 7 students from a high school program to prepare these students who are visually impaired and blind for potential career opportunities. And we have provided them an internship experience so that they can have work experience on their resume. As you all know, 70% of people with disabilities are unemployed or underemployed. So this is an opportunity that we have allowed for high school students to connect with us so that they can learn internal operations of running a small business and nonprofit management, where they can use on their resume for their next endeavor after working with us. We also have had partnered with the Census 2020 back in October of 2019, where we hosted a career fair for both blind and deaf individuals. And more recently, since the census has now completed their census surveys, there have been several different people who attended that career fair from New Jersey who have had the chance to work and receive some type of temporary employment where they were federal government workers during the census. And outside of that, just having the outlet of the peer support group, we've had a chance not only just to reach people in New Jersey, but people from all over the country and outside of the country, from as near as New Jersey to as far as Jamaica and everywhere in between, like Louisiana, Kentucky, Chicago, Florida, Texas, South Carolina, um, Las Vegas, all over, that there were people who had the time to join our support group through Zoom because there was no geographical restriction, to connect with our speakers and be empowered and engaged, to know that, you know, we are all here trying to live life day by day, but this is how we're doing it. In spite of our vision laws, in spite of any challenges or discriminations that we face, just because we are a person with a disability, we are still moving forward so that we can succeed. And not just so that we can succeed, but so that others who follow us can succeed generation after generation. Because that's what it's all about. You know, every step forward one individual who's blind or visually impaired takes, it assists the next person to have their 2 steps forward that follow behind us. You know, we're all here in this world together.
Well, that's really excellent. You did really well answering that difficult question. Thank you for answering that. Perfect. What has been your most, how about your most interesting success that you have had?
Well, my most interesting success with Eyes Like Mine, I will have to say, is when we got our mayor involved in our organization. We invited him to be a dance partner for our vice chair, who is totally blind, in our dance recital, Dancing with the Blind. And he was so open to doing it. You know, he is running the largest city in New Jersey. Shout out to Mayor Baraka. But he made time to rehearse and to get that experience to dance with our vice president.
That's cool.
And
See,
he
And that story alone shows me that what you're doing apparently works. I mean, if you get a mayor to change their schedule just to dance with someone, I mean, you got to be doing something right. Thank you for that. That's fun. That's funny. That's cool. That's cool. I mean, I've met and I'm not going to get into a big discussion about it, but I mean, I have met I actually do know my representative in my state, whatever state that might be. I do know the person personally. Um, I've never danced with him, so and neither he nor I are probably big dancers on the dance floor. I don't know it to be true. I'm just guessing. I don't think he and I are good dancers. I gotta tell you. But that's adorable. That's really cool. That you were able to convince a local politician there in New Jersey to come and support what you do. All right, and your overall greatest success. I mean, the unusual part is the mayor, but would you say that's also your greatest success as the co-founder and president, or have you had bigger overall successes than that?
Well, I will always say that we are still at our beginning stages, but yes, the culmination of having the mayor dance for Dancing with the Blind in 2017, it started like a domino effect in the relationship where it wasn't just about him dancing or us getting him to dance. It was about us establishing that relationship for him to view an existing community within the community, residents with disabilities. And it wasn't for us to like come off in an attack mode, because there could be times when people feel like they are left out, when they're misunderstood, that they're ready to just be on attack mode. But because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And it's up to us to educate our public servants and, you know, anyone else in that kind of sphere about our lifestyles and about our needs that's going to enhance our quality of life. So having him dance during that event, it kind of produced many other opportunities where we were able to do the career fair, with the deputy mayor and his administration. And then also where we recently were able to get our entire Newark Health Department of devices from the Oricam, where they purchased a $50,000 investment in Oricam devices to make sure that these devices are placed strategically in visited areas by community members. So if someone wanted to go to a specific to use to look for any groceries in the aisles or products. And when they're ready to be done and they go to pay, they can use that device to, identify their debit cards or their cash and independently shop. That's the first time that any township in New Jersey has done anything quite like that. And then also to make sure that the smart traffic lights are strategically placed in the city, so that people with not just vision loss, but people with mobility disabilities can travel independently and safely with the assistance of smart traffic lights in our town. And that's just the beginning of some of our work to introduce to the mayor's administration and as well as other community developers. We recently received a small grant through the Newark Peer Funds, where we will be producing seasonal resource and opportunity fairs so that residents with disabilities, in particular residents with vision loss, have the opportunity to connect with resources and services that apply to their lives and others that they know. And we are also hosting a in-service training for PSE&G, Public Service Gas and Electric, to educate their hiring staff on the significance of hiring people with vision loss and how we successfully perform our work tasks with our own adjustments and assistive technology. So those are just a few things. And we just are very compassionate about continuing to bring forth more education and awareness to vision loss and to connect the people that we serve with the opportunities we're fortunate to have at our disposal. We are small, but a lot of the work that we're doing has a huge impact.
Beautiful. Great. You know, you've done you're doing just an outstanding job of articulating the how much you've helped people around the world and around the country and around New Jersey. You really, I'm really impressed. I gotta say, I had never until I watched your video that you did on. Oh goodness, guys! I watched so many videos. I'm sorry out there. I know. Actually, okay, I do remember. I just don't want to name drop. When you were on her channel and the other person's channel, I mean, you did a great job. I had never heard of Eyes Like Mine Incorporated, but I'm so glad I know of it now because it is so critical for people in every state to have an organization like yours who is not only able to provide the services and support that people who are blind and people with disabilities need and deserve, but someone who is truly interested. You know, there's something about you as a guest on this podcast that just gives me the feeling that that you're a genuine person. You genuinely want to help someone else, right? And I think that that's a really critical factor that I would look for in a guest on this podcast and in someone that, you know, deserves attention and deserves to be part of this show and deserves to be on my channel. At least I think so, or that might be my opinion about it. But I mean, I immensely appreciate everything that you're doing. Um, and what about if you could only have one wish come true for 2021, because 2020, you know, for years, ugh, whoa, ooh la la. Let's just get to the next one. So if you could have one year come true, or one wish come true in 2021, you only have one wish now. What's your one wish?
Well, my one wish is to honestly be able to do a soft launch of creating paid opportunities for people with vision impairments within my organization. Um, Having that chance to start some internships to give it work experience to high school students who are visually impaired is one step toward that. But I ultimately would love to be able to create opportunities, whether they're temporary or long standing, for individuals who are interested, um, to have some type of stipend work experience within my organization. Because I think that is very important, not just to build skills of, you know, our community, but to also make sure that our work ethic is valued through some compensation, you know, and for it to be a stepping stool that can move from one stage to the next, because it's very important. Employment and having access to funds and resources is very significant all around the board for our community, for us to have access to health resources, food security, um, assistive technology, within my organization has happened. So I speak it into existence because it's something that's important to me. And I would hope that it would be important to the community that my organization connects with.
Perfect. Cool, cool. And to clarify, to kind of clarify something that you said, I didn't quite understand your point. So you said, I mean, I get it that you want blind people and people with disabilities to have work, to have meaningful, gainful employment. I get it, and I
Hmm.
agree, right? But at first, when you were saying it, do you mean that you will give them, and it's fine either way. It's a great idea either way. But do you mean like you're going to give them jobs in and employed by Eyes Like Mine Incorporated, or do you mean that you will use Eyes Like Mine Incorporated to help people find jobs outside of Eyes Like Mine Incorporated, or all of the above are correct?
All of the above.
Okay, so you would, so then what, okay, so I think it's important here to say that what you would do is you would look at someone's CV and you would decide if, well, maybe this person needs to start out in our organization and be employed by our organization, and then as they progress, we can share their skills with potential employers as they advance within the
Hmm.
system. Like that?
Yes.
I agree. I agree. I think that 501(c)s like yours are needed in every state. So, um, yeah, I mean, this is a serious matter, and I'm so privileged to be able to help you to tell your story. I'm so glad you came in today. Um, Greatly appreciate it. These types of 501(c)s that really help people find work and truly are going to help people, we really need them in all 50 states, guys. We really do, um, because so many blind people and people with disabilities are not employed right now. Actually, so many sighted people are not employed right now. So I think an organization that helps people get into the workforce will be very, very popular as we move, towards a recovery and as things start to get back to normal in a couple of years. I think this will become a major, major, major economy and a major thing that people really are able to use. That's what I think. Yeah. So I just said that I think this work is really important. Yeah, really good, and that we need it everywhere. Um, have you, just in general, have you networked or spoken with other 501(c)s that do similar work as you? I mean, you do not need to name drop. Actually, I don't want you to, but in general, have you?
Oh, always. That's the key to connecting, communicating, networking, establishing relationships. So, yes, always.
Great, cool, cool. All right, awesome, awesome. Um, What are some questions that you have for me? I've asked you a lot of questions. You've been very patient with the audio going in and out. You're an excellent guest and an excellent podcaster, by the way. Do you have any questions for me?
So, well, yes.
Sure, ask me.
How can we have more people come onto your show to cross market from Eyes Like Mine?
Well, two ideas, one of which I'm going to tell you after I turn off the recorder. The second idea is if you want to be featured on Aaron's Opinion and you're working with or you're involved in any way in Eyes Like Mine Incorporated, well, go ahead and send me an email, aaronsopinion6@gmail.com. Or you can comment below on this video and say, hey, I also work with Krystle Allen and that I need to be featured too. I would love to do that. In fact, I would love to create a system where people who are being employed people who are being employed by you when they need to, oh, I have an idea. When they need to apply for a job, a gainful job in the federal system, they should come to my show and I should basically interview them and give them the chance to tell employers why they should hire them and to give them a chance to tell their story in a positive and truthful and factual way. That's how I want to help you.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
I would love to be able to provide that service, and to help you to truly see if I can get some other blind people employed. It really means a lot to me, and I am someone who is fortunate enough to have a job for myself, but a lot of blind people are not employed right now. So the work, and any little thing that you can do at home, guys, it would help so much. As I said last week, as I started to change my slogan on Aaron's opinion, I have a new slogan, which of course I'll tell you what the slogan is at the end. But ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say that this was a really cool episode. We were speaking today with Krystle Allen, president and co-founder of Eyes Like Mine Incorporated. Fascinating story and a really, really really good organization to help out. If someone is listening on the Aaron's Opinion side and they want to help you, Krystle, how do they do that?
Well, they can stay connected by visiting our website at www.eyeslikeMine.org and emailing events@eyeslikeMine.org if you want to volunteer, if you need internship opportunity, if you need community service hours, or if you want to just connect with the people on our peer support group call. You are more than welcome. We welcome people with open arms, and you can connect with us anytime.
Well, that's so good. So good. Thank you for your patience with the audio. I think it'll come across better after it is produced. The gaps in the audio are not as noticeable in a YouTube video as they are when we're actually in the recorder. It's very bizarre. The software does some things. Zoom too, by the way, uses a lot of energy, Krystle. It uses a lot of strength to maintain the recording. It's quite complex actually. Anyway,
Yes.
Anyway, Krystle, you did a great job. Don't hang up. Let me end the podcast and let me tell you something else. You've been listening to Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community from all over the world. In this case, an issue right here in the United States. A great organization, Eyes Like Mine Incorporated. Click the link in the description for more information. As I say, you can comment below or send your email to aaronsopinion6@gmail.com. You guys never do that. Okay, no problem. You could also follow me on Twitter and reach out to me there, or you could also send a message to my Facebook page.
Stop video, Zoom meeting, standard window.
Are are you there?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Let me just say my slogan so we can get out of here before the audio gives us any more problems. Thanks so much, everybody. And
Recording.
as I like to say on this podcast, thanks so much. Help one person today, help a million people tomorrow.